Hi, I'm Jeremy,
And I'm Megan.
and welcome to Teen Focus. Today, we're here with Justin Bachman, an inspirational speaker from Solon, Ohio. Welcome.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Great to have you. So, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, geez. There's a lot to me just because I've got so many different things in my brain going on all the time because I like to call myself a psychopath just because I'm a crazy person, way too much energy. But the big thing that I am proud of most is that I lead off always is that I like to say that I'm different. That I've got these things that make me who I am that I'm incredibly proud of. The biggest, the most noticeable is something called Tourette syndrome. It's a medical condition that causes myself and other people affected by it to have uncontrollable twitches, movements, and vocal outbursts that are called tics that can range anywhere from looking like I'm cracking my neck or just kind of cracking my knuckles or fiddling with my own hands, anything like that, all the way up to what looks like I'm doing terrible karate or trying to say the weirdest sentences possible. It sounds like I've been trying to speak other languages at random points, and so it's a crazy disorder that there's nothing I can do to control, and it's actually a lot of fun.
Okay, so is that Tourette's genetically, is it like passed on or?
Yeah, and so Tourette's is passed from generation to generation. It's something that's inherited from parents. My case is a little bit weird. We don't know anyone else in my family who has had any sort of tic disorder or anything like that. I just kind of got lucky. But in most cases, there are family ties with it.
Okay.
So, can you tell us a little bit about your organization, Different Like You?
I would love to. The way Different Like You works is our mission is to empower people who are different in any way, shape, or form, whatever it may be, to be proud of those differences, to be able to show them off to others, and to do what I like to call living loud, which means being proud of who you are and showing it off to the people around you.
What inspired you to create that foundation?
So like I had said, I've been different for my entire life. In elementary school, I was not as able to handle that fact as I am today. I had no idea who I was. I had not been diagnosed with Tourette's yet until I got into 7th grade, and so I had Tourette's still, but I didn't know that. And so I was still having these movements, these noises, and I had no idea why. I was very insecure. I wasn't confident in myself. I was afraid to be me. And then in 7th grade, I finally got that diagnosis, and it was like a weight lifted off of my shoulders where I could finally be myself. I could finally talk about who I was, and I had an answer, and I had a community, and everything was going amazing. It was great. I finally felt like I belonged somewhere, and everything was cruising. It was fantastic, and then it kind of crashed in 8th grade. The exact day was September 18th, 2010. I was at a cross-country meet, and the long and short of this crazy story, this day that changed my life forever, was that the officials that day didn't know about my tics. And so whenever I would have one of them, they thought that I was just trying to be rude, trying to be obnoxious. And so what ended up happening was that because I was ticking so much and so vocally on that particular day, I was disqualified from that race. My time wasn't allowed to count. They took away my number. It was a very, very difficult thing for me to deal with. I mean, I was put into a situation that I could not win because of something I could not control. And that was hard to handle, especially as an 8th grader who really didn't have a view of the world where there were so many people who are so different. And I knew that I never wanted something like that to happen again, not only to me, but to everyone around me. And so I knew that I couldn't just sit back. If I did nothing, then this was going to continue happening, not only to me, but to everyone who was different. And so I knew that I had to do something. I wasn't sure exactly what to do, but I had to try to make something happen, and that's how Different Like You came about. The first thing that I really did was I wanted to educate people about the differences that everyone has. And I came up with a list of 15 nonprofit organizations. I brought it to my parents, and it had things like the Upside Downs, Autism Speaks, even things like the Greyhound Adoption Network, so people could get involved and volunteer. And I said, wouldn't it be cool if we had an event where people came out and learned about the differences that others have in their community, or learned about how to get involved? Because when you get involved, you meet all kinds of different people that have experiences different from yourself, and you can learn what it's like to really be a person through that. And I had no idea what was really going to come out of that, but in my little 8th grade mind, there was nothing that wasn't possible. So there was no part of me saying, well, I can't do this. So somehow, some way, my little list of 15 charities grew to be 48 different organizations. And on the day of what would become the first tolerance fair, 1,000 people came out to learn about the differences that others had in their community. It was absolutely amazing, and it showed us that we really could make a difference just by showing people that being different was okay.
So what's the tolerance fair you just mentioned?
Yeah, and so the tolerance fair was that event. The framework of it is bring people together to learn about the differences that others have in their community through ways they can get involved through volunteer work or finding resources for them to help them deal with the differences or challenges that they have. Those were the 3 types of organizations that presented. It was kind of a trade show atmosphere where we had all of these exhibitors, but then we also had a lot of interactive areas, things like wheelchair basketball. We had, at our 2013 Tolerance Fair and 2014 Tolerance Fairs, we had an organization that brought blind people to the fair, and we put seeing people, normal, able-visioned people, to partner up with a blind person, and the person who had their vision was blindfolded and then was led around the event by a person who was blind with the resources that they use every day, and they got around incredibly well, showing people how that works. And seeing that glimpse into somebody else's daily life who's different from you provides more perspective than you could possibly imagine. And so the Tolerance Fair was really the biggest way we knew to show people, at least in one big collective area, about the differences that everyone had. And so we had 4 tolerance fairs here in Cleveland. We had a couple more around the country, and we attracted about almost 10,000 people to come out. It was crazy to see that people really wanted to learn. It was an amazing event. It was a good time.
Sure. So it's all about raising awareness for different kinds of disabilities?
Yes and no. It's not just for disabilities. The way we always make sure to always use the word difference. There's a lot of different vocab out there for people who have different things going on. There's disability, there's mental illness, there's depression, there's all of these different categories that people are put into because of what makes them who they are, and we almost want to rise above that, where we want people to know that these things don't define you if you don't want them to. Everybody has differences, even the people who we think don't have any kind of disability, any kind of struggle, whatever it might be. They're still different from the person that is driving in the car next to them on their way to work. When you order a sandwich at a Subway, someone behind you in line, completely different person, and we all have these differences, and that's the word that we like to use. And so we like to raise awareness about being different and how being different isn't a bad thing, about how it's actually the best possible thing for us.
So to try to get people to see past their differences and be proud of them. Like you said.
Yes, to see past them if they want to. Or you can be someone like me who's so different that it makes me who I am, and to be proud of that as well.
Awesome.
So does this tolerance fair, is it still continuing today?
It is not. The way it worked for us was it kind of ran its course, where it served a lot of people in the community, but one of the issues we saw was that we were attracting the same people year after year after year, and we wanted to reach a different audience. And so we shut down the tolerance fair a little bit, and through Different Like You, we started doing online interactive kind of things where people were making videos talking about how they were different, and we had the goal for that to be reaching out to people that you could never meet in person, but helping a person who doesn't know that there are other people going through similar things. The phrase that we like to use was, "You're not alone." How when I was first diagnosed with Tourette's, I didn't know that anyone else was dealing with the same challenges I was, but then I met other people with my same struggles, and it showed me that, one, I wasn't the only person dealing with this ridiculousness, that there were other people going through it that have gone through it and knew how to give me help, that knew how to laugh when it got really difficult, and knew that it was okay to be like this. It gave me a sense of community, a sense of belonging, and that's what we wanted to provide through Different Like You. We have since scaled that back a lot, and we're doing pocketed things here and there just because it's, with me going away to college and the organization changing, it's been more difficult to keep everything like that going, but it still has been a mission that we're honored to be able to spread.
Yeah, so how does that affect you being at college and everything and dealing with all of that?
Well, I definitely can't just walk out of my room and go into my mom's office and have a business meeting anymore. That's one of the biggest challenges that we face, is that for so long, Lisa and I ran the organization, and we were 80 feet apart from each other at all times. Exactly. We could yell to each other instead of having a phone call. It was brilliant being able to do that. But the biggest challenge with me going away was that for so long it had been my story being told through all of Honor Good Deeds, through all of Different Like You, that it was this kid from Solon, and it was this kid who was different and was okay with it. And then when I went away to college, I started realizing that there's more to this mission than just me. And I was very, very honored to be able to take that step back and start focusing on letting other people shine. And that was how that video program really helped that transition, was that it wasn't based on just one kind of spokesperson, but it was based on everyone's collective differences and sharing them with everyone.
Okay. So when you were in high school, how was it done differently? Did you often went to high schools instead,
I did,
right?
yeah. Through all of this, through running all the tolerance fairs, through running Different Like You, through everything we did, I have been a motivational speaker. I've been doing it for about 6 years now, and the title of my speech is Living Loud, and that's that being proud of who you are and being able to show it off to others that the mission has. And through Living Loud, I've been able to speak in 15 states to an audience of about 80,000 people. It's been an incredible journey, and that was the biggest thing with high school that was so rewarding, of being that age, being able to do it. I missed 186 days at Solon High School.
Wow.
More than a year. I know.
my God.
It was awesome. It was fantastic. But I was able to miss that much time and still go make a difference because high school allowed me to do that. Being in college, I can't get away. Classes are much more demanding. It's a lot more work. It's a lot more travel. It's harder to book and make happen. And so I'm speaking a lot less, but I'm still doing it whenever I can. I've got a couple speeches over winter break, over Thanksgiving. I spoke in Strongsville. I'm speaking whenever I can, but I just had more time in high school.
Yeah. So what, when you went to the high schools, was it the same overall message that you're doing today?
Yeah. The good thing about Living Loud is that it's my story. It's the stories of me going through life being different. And it's something that I'll always be able to tell because it's something I'll always have close to my heart. And the way that it works is that I'm just on stage talking. I'm telling the stories of what I went through, what I experienced, and what I learned. And so going into a high school as a 10th grader, a sophomore in high school, or going in as a sophomore in college, the message is the same. It's the same stories, it's the same takeaways of you're going to face challenges being different. We all do. But the biggest thing that we can take out of it is how we react, how we handle those differences that we have, and also how we see the differences in others. And so Living Loud has stayed pretty constant, but it's grown up a little bit with me as well.
So how did you come up with the motto Living Loud?
Oh, man. See, I love getting this question because I think it's a hilarious story, but it's ridiculous. I was driving one day, and I had been speaking for 2 years before I actually came up with a title for my speech. The way it worked was I was just kind of talking. I had this 6-page script. I actually went back and looked at it a couple days ago, and at least to me, it was atrocious. I'm looking at it thinking, what did I write?
Yeah.
I mean, I know it was still pretty good, but it's just comparing it to what it is. I mean, 6 years of work is a lot to help something improve. And I was driving in my car one day, and there was a song that came on. It was Someday by Rob Thomas. And there's a lyric line in there where it goes, someday we will live our lives out loud. We'll be better off somehow. And I was driving and I'm thinking, I kind of like that. And so I got home and I started thinking more and more. And then I realized that I'm a loud person in general and with my Tourette's. And so the pun worked. And so I sat down and I wrote the ending to my speech where it talks about everyone has something that makes them different, whether it's the color of skin, athletic ability, yada, 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 how the speech ends. And then I wrote that for Living Loud, and it's just been that ever since.
Wow, that's great. That's cool how that connection outside led to your title of your organization.
It was a very happy accident.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
All right, going back to when you were talking about you found out in 8th grade that you were
I was diagnosed with Tourette's in 7th grade.
in 7th grade. Okay, so were you treated differently because of your Tourette's by others, not only those officials that you mentioned?
Yes. It's different being diagnosed so late. Tourette's is something that people usually find out about between the ages of 4 and 8. I was diagnosed very, very late. And so I was already in a community where people knew who I was. I mean, I was just Justin, and then one day, all of a sudden, this crazy thing happened where we figured out I had Tourette's. So I was diagnosed late in my 7th grade year. I think it was February, I'm not exactly sure. And I remember no one really noticed a difference. I mean, I told everyone, of course, because I finally figured this thing out, but right away there wasn't much difference that I saw. There were a few kids that almost used it to make fun of me, to do things like that, and I tried to brush that off. I mean, I got called twitchy here and there, but I just thought that was uncreative. Like, you can do better than that. If you're gonna be that bad, be that bad well. And so I really didn't notice much difference until I got into 8th grade. And then that was when I started handling it proactively. And so there were still a lot of questions. I wouldn't say people treated me poorly, as you were asking, but people didn't know how to react, how to act around me, because this was this thing that, I mean, through no fault of their own, none of us knew about.
Yeah.
I had never heard of Tourette's before I was diagnosed, except for maybe a couple YouTube videos here and there making fun of it. And so I had no idea. And so I learned more and more. I did a lot of research. What is this? What am I going to be doing? What are other people doing? And then in 8th grade, I met with my teachers before the first day of school. And I gave them a script that said, this is Justin, you all actually know him, but here's this thing that's different. It's his Tourette's. He's still the same kid. He's still doing the same stuff he was last year. He's just going to be ticking. If you have any questions, ask him. That was the biggest part for me, was that I wanted people, rather than assuming things and getting them wrong and feeling uncomfortable, I wanted them to know, to ask and feel comfortable with me being a part of that classroom, being a part of that life in middle school and in high school. And so for me, being open with it was the biggest thing. And once I said, this is just what it is, people were really, really okay with it. People were really open to it. And as I went on in high school, it really became almost a big thing about me. I mean, people started knowing about the speaking that I was doing and everything like that, but my tics also got a lot worse and weirder. I spent my freshman year in a wheelchair because of tics that I had in my hip and in my ankles. It looked like I was trying to do a crane kick from Karate Kid, and I would roll my ankles in every step that I took. It was difficult, and so I spent 6 months in a wheelchair, and there were things about my Tourette's that really became things that I identified with. I mean, my senior shirt had the word pterodactyl on the back because that was one of my tics. It was an identifying thing that everyone really liked. It was a fun little noise that everyone giggled at, and it was something that made us all closer. And so it went from a lot of confusion to almost a rallying point.
So are the symptoms from Tourette's more mild or drastic? Because you said in 8th grade it was more noticeable by others.
Yeah, and so Tourette's is really weird. That's really the best way I know how to say it, is that it is a strange condition. It's almost a spectrum disorder where from a scale of 1 to 10, most people are at a 1 or a 2, where it's tics that are like from the shoulders up, they'll be blinking, they'll be cracking their neck, whatever. You would barely notice it. I, at certain points in my life, have been a 9. At certain points in my life, I've been a 3. I've been all over. But usually I'm somewhere between a 6 and an 8. When I was in 8th grade, my vocal tics were really, really bad. I have what's called coprolalia. And that's what the media knows as, the really general assumption of Tourette's is that it's that swearing disorder. And that's what coprolalia is. It's those tics that are absurd, things that I would never myself say, but that I have this weird itch in my brain that makes me say them. In 8th grade, it was pretty bad. Aside from my senior year in high school and part of my sophomore year in college, that was the worst my coprolalia has been. And it's a part of an OCD component as well, where there are things in my brain that goes, what's the worst thing we can say right now? And then my Tourette's goes, ooh, let's say that. Let's say it super loud. And so health class was really weird. Health class was very odd in 8th grade. 9th grade was more physical tics. 10th grade was kind of lower. And then 11th and 12th grade, it was just a lot of weird noises.
Okay.
So does it get more, so it varies, or like
it
does
changes
it get more
every
severe?
day.
Okay.
There's really no way to know what I'm going to wake up with. I've had tics in my shoulders for 6-7 years now, but I've had tics that have lasted for hours and never have been seen again. It's a lottery that I play every morning when I wake up. It's a lottery that I love being able to play, but it does change constantly.
And because of the incredible things you've done with your organizations, I understand that you've received some awards for different things. So, like, would you like to share some of those awards you may have received?
Sure. It's a weird thing for me with awards, everything like that. I mean, the recognition is an honor. It's something that I'm beyond proud to be able to have on my resume, to have these awards up on my shelf. I've gotten a lot of things that I'm incredibly proud of. I've won 2 volunteer service awards from President Obama for the amount of work that I've done. I've gotten a couple scholarships because of it that are allowing me to follow my dream of one day being an anchor at Syracuse University. I'm studying broadcast journalism to have my own anchor desk, and those scholarships have allowed me to do that. It's it's a weird thing, recognition, where I remember when I started doing this work, my parents sat me down and they said, if your head ever gets too big, this is all going away. You have to remember where you came from. You're doing it to help others. You're doing it to help yourself. And that always stuck with me, where I never ever let the awards, the recognition supersede what I was doing. I mean, I'm always honored to have those things, but for me, an award on a shelf means nothing in comparison to someone coming up to you after a speech saying that you stopped their suicide attempt that they were planning that night. It's an amazing thing to know that people care about what you're doing, that they see that it's a good thing, but it's not why I do it.
Yeah, for sure. So how can people get involved in your movement or your Different Like You organization?
That's a great question, because the way that it's worked with me going away to college, with the amount of time we put into it, it's almost run its course as a physical organization where we're not doing nearly as many programming things, anything like that. So getting involved through volunteering is going to be a lot more difficult, at least with our organization. But I'd say the best way to get involved with us is to live the message every single day. I mean, what it really comes down to, living loud, embrace your differences, different like you, honor good deeds, all of those things really look at who we are as people and how we deal with the things that make us who we are. I wake up every single day and I have a slew of things that make me different. I wake up every day and one of the first things I do is I tick. It's just what happens. I mean, it's not a daily schedule that I make myself do. It's something that my body just does. There are people who wake up every single day that have to face the differences and challenges that they have that they're not yet comfortable with. And the message of Living Loud, the message of Different Like You, is that it's okay to be who you are. For so long, I saw my own differences as something that was bad, as something that made me worse than the other people around me. And I learned a little too late that, in fact, they made me fantastic. They made me who I really am. And so the best way to get involved is to you yourself be okay with those differences that you have and to help the people around you embrace them as well.
And when you speak to these large groups of people, do you share any of your personal stories that may impact them more drastically with the personal connection?
I get real personal real quick. I start out, before I say my own name on stage, by telling the story of how I attempted suicide the second time. It's Living Loud, the speech, is a journey through the life of me being different. And so it really gets very, very personal as soon as possible. I mean, I remember when I first started doing the new version of Living Loud, when I rewrote it, I remember crying in my room as I was writing the intro, where I'm really detailing what is the darkest time I've ever experienced in my entire life. And it was hard. It was difficult to do, but I realized the first couple times that I did it, that it was better than anything I had done in the past, because that deep personal touch was what I had needed. And that I for so long wasn't comfortable talking about my suicide attempts because it was something that I blocked out of my mind. And then when I finally started to do it, there were people coming up to me saying, thank you for being able to talk about this, because it was something that they were experiencing as well and didn't know how to start a conversation. And so it was hard for me to get that personal that quickly, but it's something that I'm glad I've done.
Just opening up to others about that and them dealing with the same problems allowed them to have someone with the same connection to speak to you about.
Yeah, it's been interesting with the suicide aspect of Living Loud. In the time that I've been speaking and in the time that I've been talking about my suicide attempts, there have been 19 people that have come out saying I had a suicide plan that I was going to put into action. There have been a couple cases where they were saying it was going to be that night. I've had a couple people message me while they were in the act saying, how do I get help? Wow. It's something that's still hard for me to fathom. Every single time that it happens, I'm blown away by the fact that people feel that they can reach out to me. It's a burden to know that there are lives of other people in your own hands, but it's a burden that I'm honored to be able to bear. And it's something that I'm glad is happening because I know my younger self. And in those darkest days, I thought that I was alone. I thought that nobody knew what I was going through, nobody cared, nobody wanted to. And if there had been a person telling a story similar to what I was going through then, I think I would have connected with that person. And if I could have helped my younger self the way that thankfully I'm helping these students as well, then it's worth it every day.
Yeah.
So how do you see your future in different like you, or just Tourette's syndrome in general?
I have no idea. I remember whenever I would do questions, I would get asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it was one of the hardest questions I would ever get because I really don't know. I change my mind constantly, but I've been following a track right now where I want to be an anchor for a community or a national network anchor, where I want to be able to tell people what's going on around them, what's going on in the community, and hopefully to make good things the news for once. You turn on your TV and you see shootings, you see bombings, you see all these terrible things, and then there's a 30-second segment on a kid that's trying to make a difference, and I want to try and change that. Yes, these crazy things that happen are news. An airplane landing safely isn't something that people want to see on the front page of a newspaper, but I want to do something with my life that shows people the good going on in the world around them as well. And so that's what I want to do in the future. I don't know how exactly I'm going to do that, but at least right now, I think it's going to be through being a news anchor. I'll get back to you once I know.
Yes.
So are you going to pursue the living loud, or is once you become the anchor, is that going to like change a bit?
I'm not sure. I wasn't even sure if I was still going to be speaking when I got into college. I wasn't sure if it was going to go away entirely, but obviously and thankfully it hasn't. And so I think that it's always going to be something that I have in my back pocket, where the good thing about living loud is that it's my own story, and it changes every day because I'm living every day and I'm learning all these different things. And so the thing about speaking when I was young and when I was in high school is that I was speaking at high schools as a high schooler. I was able to relate in a way that I had an advantage being the same age, being the same kind of person, being the same level of experience in this thing we call life. And so it was rewarding being able to have that advantage, and I don't know if I'm going to have that advantage going forward, but I think that I'm still going to continue doing it. I think that I'm always going to be trying to make a difference somehow, and still always trying to show people that it's okay to be different, because I'm always going to be different, and because everyone's always going to be different. And so I don't know if it's going to be exactly through living loud, but I know that I'm always going to be trying.
Yeah. I think it's really incredible on what you've been doing.
Thank you.
Great, yeah. We both want to thank you for coming out with us
thank
today
you so
and
much.
sharing your
Thank you
stories.
guys for having me.
Yeah,
It's
and
been
what you've
awesome.
done. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching Teen Focus. See you next time.